Okay, welcome to Whatsoever More or Less. My name is Jason, and I am a guy who has studied the prophets a lot and the scriptures a lot regarding the Constitution, and then also the Constitution itself a lot, and the founding documents, Federalist Papers, and in particular begun to focus on Madison and Jefferson in particular as the ultimate authorities on truth, pure truth regarding the Constitution. So I am going to be quoting from Wilford Woodruff here today. And so this has been a nice little find. I've got a whole series of these planned for you guys. And so I'm going to be reading this right here. I thought about doing scans, and then I thought, you know what? I've got other things that I need to probably be doing. So I'm just going to read this real quick for you. And I've got several other great quotes that have, we can call it confirmation bias if you want, but that have confirmed to me what my studies were showing me even before I found this quote. So, fantastic quote. The American Constitution, beginning the quote here. I am an American citizen. A great many of this group, I hope, are. I was born in the state of Connecticut, and many of the New England forms and teachings in our childhood 65 years ago were good to receive and live by. But what I want to say is we live in a government raised up by the God of heaven. We have a constitution that was given by inspiration from God to man. I believe it is the best human form of government that was ever given to the human family. Now I say, if our rulers and governors become corrupt and attempt to trample those principles under their feet, though the nation itself might go to pieces, yet it is beyond the power of man to destroy the principles of the Constitution. They may destroy one another, yet the principles contained in that instrument will live, and the God of heaven will maintain them until Jesus Christ comes in the clouds of heaven to set up his throne in Jerusalem and to reign on earth 1,000 years. Okay, now there are several aspects of this that will be testified of by other prophetic quotes from Harold B. Lee, John Taylor, David O. McKay, Gordon B. Hinckley, what have you, that I will be getting into in the near future. Of course, Ezra Taft Benson and J. Reuben Clark. But I'm just going to start sharing these. The thing that stood out to me is they may destroy one another, yet the principles contained in that instrument will live, and the God of heaven will maintain them until Jesus Christ comes in the clouds of heaven to set up his throne in Jerusalem and to reign on the earth 1,000 years. So he's saying this is part of the law that God gave. Harold B. Lee, I will give a quote on that real soon here, says that the law that was to go forth from Zion is literally the Constitution and the principle of constitutions, and that is the law going forth from Zion to all the world, that the constitutional style of government is the one that is to endure until the second coming. And I'll give that quote real soon here. But then just kind of quoting myself from this little document here. So this was confirmation bias for me. I did a number of lengthy studies on the Constitution and then kind of wrote them into little essays for myself to organize my thoughts. When you write essays, this is something Richard G. Scott had us do on our mission. We did one on the atonement. It was an amazing assignment. This is called I Don't Believe We've Done Everything We're Supposed to with or for the Constitution Yet. And this was some thoughts from members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints by myself, Jason Gartner. And again, this is what I wrote here. Christ's future reign and the Constitution until then. I know that Jesus Christ will come again and the government will be upon his shoulders. President Nelson, the Lord Jesus Christ will come again, is the name of the talk that comes from. Or he recently had reference to that. I believe we should remember that the law of Moses was in full effect until after his resurrection, when he said the law was fulfilled, 3 Nephi 12, 17, and 18. I know that the current set of ordinances for church are the current official way to point our minds to Christ, and that these represent a much bigger plan. I know that while we are still answerable to the laws of man on earth, that God has said that whatsoever law exercises more or less than the Constitution permits comes of evil. Doctrine and Covenants 98, 4 through 8. And I would add on top of that, whatsoever law that fails to exercise the promises guaranteed, or it tries to skirt around the promises guaranteed, is also comes of evil. So that's where the less aspect comes from. I think while we know that there will be a new law when he comes again, we would be wise to not forget that when the sign of Christ's first coming was seen, there were those who prematurely abandoned the law of Moses in 3 Nephi 1, 24 and 25. They knew it was prophesied to end. They saw the sign. They decided for themselves that it was done. They soon realized their error in not enduring in following the law until Jesus himself announced a new law. It seems obvious that Jesus will replace the Constitution, but that in the meantime we are to endure in purely following it. Isaiah speaks of those who will be in trouble at the second coming for transgressing the laws, changing the ordinances, and breaking the covenant. Isaiah 24:5. I think we should be careful lest we use any level of government to take from families those duties God has given them since Adam and Eve. I highly recommend studying the words of Thomas Jefferson, the center president of the 5 founding presidents, to inform our attitude towards government and the Constitution. I am no prophet to declare doctrine, but sometimes something about it feels like that love of our freedom and our neighbor's freedom is what we're supposed to get. Of course, that's second to our love for God, our Father, and His Son, Jesus Christ. But agency in God's plan is what they've had us engaged in since the pre-mortal existence. And I do want to give credit to H. Verlin Anderson and President Nelson talk. I recently heard from him. One about being peacemakers from back before he was the prophet is a different one under that title. Similar attitude. Or Morgan Philpott pointing out, are you loving your neighbor's agency as your own if you're imposing on them arbitrary rules for how they control their property? Right? So there's some point where even if you get a supermajority voting for certain things to control somebody else's property, if it's not a valid cause, you're probably going too far. And these are things that the founders understood. I recommend Samuel Adams. The Rights of the Colonists is the name of the letter that he wrote, or the pamphlet that he wrote. But anyhow, so Wilford Woodruff again said that we may break apart or whatever may happen, I guess, right? We may have a 3 Nephi 7 type of moment. Who knows what we may have, but it's besides the point. He says, they may destroy one another, yet the principles contained in the instrument will live, and the God of heaven will maintain them until Jesus Christ comes in the clouds of heaven to set up his throne in Jerusalem and to reign on earth 1,000 years. So we need to not abandon, just because we've been talking a lot about the second coming of Jesus Christ, the same way the people in 3 Nephi were talking a lot about the first coming of Jesus Christ, doesn't mean we suddenly get to abandon in the meantime defending the law that he's told us to endure in maintaining until that time that he says it's fulfilled. And that's my thoughts for that. Seriously study the Constitution. You will find it to be something that really leads to inspiration, just like studying the Scriptures. But you have to ask, you have to seek, and you have to knock. And same as you do with any of the other Scriptures, or when a new prophet's called or whatever. And that's all I recommend. And again, thanks for listening, you guys. And have a great Sunday tomorrow. Thanks. Bye.